On the morning of December 4th, Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, the largest private health insurance company in the United States, was on his way to an investors meeting when he was gunned down in the streets of Manhattan. At time of filming, the motive, at least officially, is still unknown, but the gunman did leave behind a number of clues found at the crime scene. Investigators found 3 words written on the bullet casings, those 3 words being deny, defend, depose. These words may be all too familiar for patients who had their healthcare coverage denied at the hands of insurance companies, implying that the Thompson murder is at least loosely connected to such denials of coverage. Indeed, according to reporting, United Healthcare denied 1 out of every 3 claims, the highest instance of denials out of all major providers. And in a completely unrelated side note, United Healthcare saw $22 billion in profit for the year 2023, with Brian Thompson himself gaining a $10.2 million compensation for that same year. Now, for me personally, I really couldn't care less if a business owner, CEO, lawyer, doctor, what have you, if they make a few $1 million a year, honestly, good for them, they probably deserve it. But if your $1 million career revolves around the ruining of other people's lives, causing mass financial, psychological, and physical suffering, well, that's a different story. That's a different story. That's a different story. I also find it interesting the disparity in news reporting when covering blue-collar crimes versus white-collar crimes. For white-collar crimes, as exemplified with Brian Thompson, who was under investigation for potential insider trading, typically the news will say how great of a person he was, what kind of a family man he was, as opposed to a blue-collar crime where typically they just talk about what kind of a criminal they were, if they were a drug dealer, so on and so forth. Yeah, just kind of funny how that plays out. Now, obviously, healthcare in the United States is a huge issue, and it's really not hard to find someone who hasn't been screwed over by our broken for-profit system. Thus, the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson has generated quite the response online, with one news article calling the public response a morbid glee. Many people are sending their thoughts and deductibles, while others have stated, unfortunately, their sympathies are currently out of network. I've also seen people on TikTok use Bo Burnham's song All Eyes on Me as a way of sending a message. Are you feeling nervous? Are you having fun? It's almost over? It's just begun. Yes, definitely getting strong French Revolution vibes on that one. All jokes aside, friendly reminder that this channel does not condone violence, but what we do condone is resistance. And that is what the wall behind me is comprised of. Resistance against abuses of power, against corruption, and against general fuckery where the people at the top can profit from the mass suffering of others. And that is what we will be exploring today. This video is less about what happened on the morning of December 4th and more about what led us to this circumstance in the first place, along with that public reaction of morbid glee and a general resentment of the current system. And I think that sentiment is reflected in numerous ways within our creative culture, so we will be picking a few songs from the wall to maybe get a better understanding of this situation. First up, we have Immortal Technique with his song Toast to the Dead. Down on the second verse he says, "A toast to the dead for children with cancer and AIDS. A cure exists and you probably could have been saved. It's sad to see medicine divorce morality, corporate home wreckers pimping up the salary." Now, is there really a cure for cancer and AIDS? I don't know. But I think what tech is really getting at here is that there's far more money to be had in treating the symptom of a problem versus curing it outright. And it is sad to see that medicine has been divorced from morality, and even with the United Healthcare situation, yeah, I mean, those corporate homewreckers are definitely pimping up the salary, largely at our expense. And we're fucking sick of it! Anyways, the next song is actually one that I found on Reddit. It's from the Coup, who is not on the wall yet, but they will be very, very soon. It was a song titled 5 Million Ways to Remove a CEO. Again, we do not condone violence, this is just a simple song review. And while the song is graphic by nature, as we mentioned previously, it's not about the violence itself, but what led to the violence in the first place. And I think that this song does a relatively good job of explaining that. Now, funny enough, I tried to look these lyrics up on Google, and Google would not load them, so take that for what it is. I guess. Diving into the lyrics, 5 million ways to remove a CEO. Do your checks have elasticity? Did they cut off your electricity? Did you scream and yell explicitly? Force the boss into complicity. Broke as fuck, eating lentils with no utensils. They own sweatshops, pet cops, and fields of cola. Probably a reference to cocaine. They control the Pope, Dalai Lama, holy rollers, and the Ayatollah. Basically implying that even despite your religion, even a head of a religious order still has a price. Want to know what the demeanor's about? The city tried to clean us out? Referencing gentrification. The green is clout, shut them down, they ain't never seen a drought. There's also a few mentions of the blind pursuit of money, like throwing cash into a river and watching them drown trying to retrieve it, and again with a $20 bill thrown into a vat of oil, and yet again with a $50 bill stuffed into the barrel of a gun. The obvious theme is that some people have an unquenchable thirst for money, while others have comparatively little money and have to live in squalor just to make it day by day. And there's a bunch of other stuff, but feel free to check out the song yourself if you're interested. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next one. We're moving on to the next song from a musical duo who is actually, again, not on the wall, but they will be very soon. Up next, we have Garfunkle and Oats with their song, Save the Rich. This song was actually written for Occupy Wall Street, and therefore the song is actually still quite relevant. Instead of eating the rich, today, we are saving the rich. Why would we ever do that? Well, let's find out. Save the rich, let their bonuses be swollen, let them keep it all tax-free, even if it's stolen. Let's give our job creators more than their fair share so that they can go to Asia and create jobs over there. There's loopholes and exemptions and children to exploit, so let's give them special tax breaks because who cares about Detroit? It's not time for complaining, it's not time for class war. It's time to sacrifice yourself to give them more, and 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 more. And heading into the chorus, save the rich, America's built on corporate greed. It's not Wall Street's fault if you can't get what you need. Save the rich, don't go crying to mommy, because if you don't agree, then you're a socialist commie. That last one is definitely one of my favorites because it's a huge pet peeve of mine where you can't even critique the ills of capitalism without someone calling you a socialist commie. And more often than not, even when they're talking about people within the United States government, say Congress, for example, like people aren't even close to anything resembling like an anti-capitalist sentiment. At this point, it's just a way to other people. Now, we're only going to cover the first half of this song, but definitely feel free to check it out because it is quite hilarious and it is quite good. And there's also a number of more hilarious points later on. Up next, we have another song from another comedian, Trevor Moore, who you might know from the show The Whitest Kids You Know. So yes, it is another comedy song that, again, kind of takes things to a whole new level, but just again, friendly reminder that it's all satirical. You know, this is just a lyric review, it's not condoning violence, and it's not a call to action, it's literally just a review of a song that you can find on YouTube right now. Now that that's out of the way, it's time for our song titled Time for Guillotines. It's basically a satirical song about the people on the left and the right no longer fighting against each other. They are now coming together as a whole and putting their anger up against the people who have been ruining their lives this entire time. It's time for guillotines. They're going after the politicians, the congressmen, the CEOs, the news pundits. You got lesbians and NASCAR drivers and abortion doctors and priests coming together to find the lobbyists. They're all doing the same thing. Like I said, they're coming together, putting aside their differences, and they are building those guillotines for a particular purpose. All of which is happening, of course, in the fictional comedy song by the late great Trevor Moore, who actually is also not on the wall, but again, he will be very soon. Really missed that show, The Whitest Kids You Know. Shit was hilarious. And the final track comes to us from the UK metal group Acrania with their song Lobotomise, Dehumanise, Negate. It's also featuring Jamie from I Declare War, who is also on the wall. And the cover is actually quite fitting for the theme we are covering here. Hopefully you are seeing that as I ramble on about potatoes and potato accessories. But enough about potatoes, let's talk about the music. So diving into the lyrics, we are talking about building an army of the masses, with undertones of mutiny leaking through. We are the system disassembling itself. There are more of us than you. We stand in front of you, the many against the few. Yeah boy! Civil disobedience as the gears grind to a halt. Dishonesty gleams through the cracks in the machine. If this is all just a grand experiment, we might as well make a fucking difference. There are more of us than you. You will not see us coming. We are from everywhere, hoods up and faces covered. We stand in front of you, the undertones of mutiny slowly leaking through. Hashtag V for Vendetta. Alright guys, that's all I have for now. Again, we are not celebrating the death of anyone. We are simply looking at what got us here in the first place. So if there's a song that you think fits within this current social and political climate, definitely leave that in the comments below. I would love to check that out. Also, let me know if there's an album on the wall that you would like to see me review next. Alright guys, again, that's all I have for now. Like and subscribe if you like the vibe, and until then, we will see you on the next video. Later. Good enough.